We are back with another review. This time we're taking a look at the new Adidas Ace 15.1. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. So, as I mentioned, Ace 15.1, opening it up. First thing you see is a bag with the Ace logo up top, the same detailing you'll find on the boot, that pattern, with Adidas football on the bottom, and it's in this kind of olive fade to a highlighter yellow across it. So put that off to the side, and we'll get the boots out. Off my initial impression of this boot, I am pretty impressed. I do like it better than the X based just on design. Time will tell how I think they perform on feet, but just based on the visual appearance of them, I do like these boots better. This boot is aimed at the more control-oriented player, kind of designed to replace the Predator 11 Pro and Nitro Charge. So it takes various elements from each boot to incorporate those into a boot that's designed more for control and stability, rather than something that's more aimed for speed and aggressiveness. Getting into some of the technical details of this boot, we'll start off with this 3D structure that makes up the front 2/3 of the boot. See, front 2/3 all the way around. It's a very tough material to describe. I wouldn't say it's anything like the Predator's rubberized zones or the Nitro Charge energy sling. It's definitely a harder, almost really dense foam material. Is a good way I think I could describe it. While I can't say for sure right now, I do expect this to perform really, really well in play, because it does seem like it'll give you a lot of control on the ball, which is obviously what these boots are aimed for, so it's a good sign there. On first glance, these might appear to be a bit like the Magista Opus as far as having that 3D structure over a mesh layer behind it, but I will say they're quite a bit different in the actual materials that are used with that 3D structure. The Magista Opus has a bit of a synthetic leather feel for that upper, whereas this, again, is more of like a foam, like a really dense, hard foam, rather than a synthetic type feel. And the liner on this is not, there's no mesh backing to this, it's more of a kind of nylon polyester type feel. As you can see as we take a look up close, the upper does have a bit of texture to it, just like the X does. It has these knobs throughout, across the entire upper, making up that 3D structure. That's designed to give you more control on the ball, as I said, and also probably cut down on weight quite a bit as well with all the cutouts on this. As we move up the boot, you can see we have the asymmetrical lacing system on these. Obviously, if you're familiar with my videos, you know I'm not the biggest fan of that, but we'll see how these perform. They don't look like they're too much off-center, so they might still perform pretty well. We'll see. Obviously, the asymmetrical lacing system is designed to give you a greater kicking area across the inside of your foot. And it seems like they've offset it enough where they give you that extra area, but not too much where it's going to be hard to get that snug fit that you want. So that looks like it might be good on this boot. Again, if we go with the inside stripes, these are also textured. Take a closer look there, get that in focus. See, these are also textured to maintain that grip throughout in the areas that you need it. As we continue towards the heel of this boot, this is where pretty much everyone in the shop who has picked up this boot was a bit concerned. This back material, this bright neon material, is extremely, extremely cheap, or at least feels like it. You can see the light shining off it right now. Obviously, there's no texture to it, which you're not really going to need anyways, because you're not really going to be hitting the ball with this part of your foot anyways. But it is interesting that Adidas chose to use this kind of cheap appearing material. From a distance, it doesn't look too bad, but just having your hand on it, it just feels so cheap. Where if I'm paying $200 for a boot, I want it to be high quality materials. I don't want it to be feeling like it's made of cheap plastic. So that same material continues over to the tongue, where you have that neon hit up top. You can see, if I flip this around and give you guys a better look, if I can get that in focus. You can see it's just a thin layer of foam, not very squishy. It's still very flexible and everything. But you can see it's just a thin layer of foam up top. As you come down, you have a bit more padding throughout the heel. You do have an external heel counter in that highlighter yellow color still. Adidas calls it the control fit, so it'll lock your heel in place and hopefully hold your heel in this boot a bit better than the X. If you watch that review, you know how I felt about that. On the very back of the heel, you do have the Adidas branding in white against that highlighted yellow. The inside is made up of feels like a bit of a softer synthetic leather. If we take a look at the insole, it is a bit of a synthetic fabric, definitely not suede, just feels like a regular old fabric. Very thin, very thin layer, single layer of black foam with perforations through it. Definitely feels thinner than the X, but again, we'll look at that further in review when I compare those two boots. So continuing on to one of the biggest areas of change with this boot, besides being entirely new silhouette, is the outsole. So it's going to be tough to kind of pick up those 4 studs in the back. There you go, you can see that better. In the back you have the 4 conical studs, like a typical boot. However, I will mention they are a bit shorter than what you would expect on a regular firm ground boot. But again, this boot is aimed for firm ground and artificial grass. This boot, in comparison to the X, is definitely more towards the artificial grass area of that spectrum. The X has a pretty aggressive stud pattern, whereas this is quite a bit more reserved. As I mentioned, you have the 4 in the back, but then as you travel forward across the sole plate, you'll see you have these 6 longer main conical studs here. And then a whole slew of studs that run down in between those, all the way down towards the back where it switches over to that highlighted yellow. You can see they get very short through here, but they're still 4 across, 4 across, 4 across, and then they kind of branch out a little bit longer as you go through the mid part of the foot. You have studs that wrap around the very top of the boot. You can see that right across the very edge of the toe. It'll give you a bit of extra grip as you're planning and accelerating. And again, these studs are quite a bit shorter. The 6 studs obviously are the longest of the studs up front, but still, even those are quite a bit shorter than what you'd expect on a firm ground boot. Adidas says that this will perform well on firm natural surfaces as well as artificial grass. Personally, I think these are a little bit too short to perform on natural grass, but definitely perform really well on artificial grass. On artificial turf, these will be extremely successful in accomplishing their job of giving you traction. All those little studs are going to grab into the grass and really allow you to accelerate, change direction, and make all the turns and cuts that you want. Definitely without getting stuck in it all. We'll talk about that a little bit more towards the end of the video. So with that, guys, I've given you a quick look at some of the tech specs as well as some of the aesthetics. Let's go through these on feet, and I can tell you a little bit more about the fit and feel and give you the final wrap-up. So immediately as I lace this boot up, I can tell it's extremely comfortable. You can see right now that I am on artificial grass, being indoors, so this artificial stud pattern does feel really good on that. I don't know how well it will perform in longer grass where you're going to need that bit more of aggressive bite to your studs, but at least on shorter grass as well as artificial turf, these are going to perform absolutely amazing. Just from walking around, it feels like I'm wearing a turf shoe almost, but there's absolutely 0 stud pressure on this boot. It's extremely comfortable. Even those back 4 studs, there's no stud pressure, and the front, forefront of the foot is extremely comfortable. The upper feels nice. That asymmetrical lacing is that I mentioned I'm not a huge fan of. Actually feels like it was executed pretty well on this boot. The spacing of the left lace holes as compared to the right lace holes feels like it was done pretty well. They're far enough apart where you can get a snug fit without any bunching up or any folding over, which is sometimes the case with some of the asymmetrical lacing. So I feel like Adidas has done this well with this boot. The 3D kicking surface feels really nice. You can see as I walk, it folds really nice. All those different kind of cuts out in different grid patterns allow for the boot to flex in a lot of different spots, allowing it to feel really natural against your foot. One thing I will say is the sole plate is a bit stiff, not by much, but something that may take a little bit of getting used to as far as breaking it in. Regarding the plastic of the heel, As I expected, no real issue there. The plastic, while it doesn't look the best, isn't going to affect your performance in any way. It locks your foot down extremely well. There's no heel slippage with this boot like there was with the X 15.1 that I reviewed previously. So I'm really happy with that. I was hoping that there was going to be at least one Adidas boot from the new Adidas Revolution that I'd be really happy with, and I think this is going to be it. I primarily play on artificial turf, so I'd be fine getting this boot. I think I would need a second pair for games where it is a bit wet, if we play on any wet grass, but these boots would be pretty good for most of the games that I would need them for, especially during the summer months. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that quick look at the Adidas Ace 15.1. I tried to give you all my opinions on the boot with fit and feel. If I didn't mention it in the beginning of the video, I do take a 9 US in these. That is my true size. I would say these fit very true, both width and length. I was really happy with the fit, as I mentioned. So definitely stay true to size if you do pick a pair of these up. We will have a full comparison video coming soon between the Ace and the X 15.1. So be on the lookout for that. They both come in at the same price of $220. So a bit expensive, but if you are in the Adidas camp and you're looking for top-line boots, we're going to have to pay. So unlike with the X, I don't foresee any durability issues with the Ace. The studs being that shorter, more conical stud, I don't think those will have any issue holding up over time compared to some of the bladed studs where you sometimes have those breaking and cracking. The upper, at least as far as the performance area goes, seems to be very durable as well. As I mentioned, again, this rear portion a bit shaky, but durability-wise seems like it'll hold up, just visually not the most appealing. My main pair of boots right now are the Superfly 4s, so I do like that sock collar, and if I was to buy a second pair of boots in the more control-oriented area, I would go with the Magista Obras. But if I didn't like that sock collar, I definitely would look at this boot. Honestly, I like this boot much better than the Magista Opus as well as the Tiempo Legend, which is kind of what this boot will compare to. If you guys want to see a full comparison of this boot to any of those, or any boots in particular for that matter, let me know down in the comments. I'd be happy to get that video up for you if we have the boots in store. If you are interested in picking up a pair of these, we do have these on our online shop. You can visit that at eastcoastsoccershop.com. We'll have some really detailed shots of these going up soon on our Instagram. You can check that out at EC Soccer Shop. Stay tuned to that. We'll be looking to do some kind of giveaways and other things in the future between that and our YouTube page, so stick around and see what we have coming for you there. With that, guys, as always, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.